Hello. We late? A little bit late?
No, we are just on time.
Great. Okay. Маємо приклад, так?
Буде переклад українською.
Добре.
Воно вже все там виставлено.
Вже перекладають?
На потрібний канал. Ну, зараз, коли почнеться англійською.
Прекрасно, так. Да. Окей.
Шановні колеги,
Colleagues, thank you very much for replying.
Put your headphones on. So, шановні колеги, дякую.
Colleagues, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. The President is ready to answer your questions. We'll have around an hour. We agree that we'll go clockwise so that we don't take away from your time. Please, you can start, but don't forget to introduce yourselves.
So Keir Starmer says that any security guarantee must come with US backing. How do you intend on salvaging that relationship? How do you intend to do it? And just very quickly, can you just talk through your meeting with King Charles today and what you think of UK support for Ukraine?
Хочу подякувати.
I would like to thank you very much for this meeting. Thank you very much for the question. With regards to the Prime Minister, Starmer, and our relations with the United States. First of all, this meeting today was very important, and this is one of the meetings in the chain of meetings, starting with the third anniversary of the large-scale invasion, where Ukraine is being mentioned. And I'm sure that the Prime Minister knows, and we have talked about it in the framework of the initiatives regarding the continent offered by the French Republic. We believe that our best security guarantee is a strong Ukrainian army, and a strong Ukrainian army that has enough numbers of people to stop the aggression from Russia in any shape or form. And I mean an army which is strong in numbers, both in the battlefield, the infantry, I mean on the ground and in the air, and in terms of fires and air defense, and also on the sea. So I'm talking about a full-fledged, strong Ukrainian army as regards security guarantees. How do we supply this army? How do we provide training? How do we provide funding? And regarding what the Prime Minister said, we're talking about the continent. I think what he means that the continent needs to be to include some form of presence from the United States, perhaps in different formats. We can talk about air defense, we can talk about intelligence, other things, and we can talk about security in the air. I think the United States have a lot of experience. Here we have seen this in the Middle East, and historically we can understand that they're also strong on the sea. So if we were to talk about the format of security guarantees for the continent, our colleagues from the United Kingdom and from France can see this in whatever format, some presence of the United States. That's normal. And I believe that Ukraine and the United States have a partnership relationship, a fairly strong relationship. And since the start of the large-scale invasion, they were probably the strongest, because previously this kind of support, as prior to the large-scale invasion, there was no this level of support, and probably because there was no full-scale invasion. However, even 10 years ago, I'm not sure that all of the partners would have get involved strongly and would not have allowed Russia to expand the occupation and would have stopped Russia. I think that it would have been a strong signal, a preventive signal as regards the full-scale invasion. As regards salvaging the relationship that you asked about, I think that our relationship will continue because this is more than relationships in one moment. We need to be open. Ukraine is not the largest country in the world. However, everyone can see how Ukraine is fighting for its independence and freedom. And we are grateful to the people of the United States. We are grateful to all of the societies in the countries that support us. Indeed, we are very thankful. And the bipartisan support has always been on our side. And I think at the same level, the support will continue, because a failure of Ukraine would not just mean a Putin's success. It would mean a failure for Europe. It would mean a failure for the United States. And I think we're all interested in not allowing Putin to win. And this is why this meeting today, and you can see how Europe has come together. And I would like to thank the people, and here in the streets, and yesterday at the meeting with the Prime Minister, everyone is on the side of Ukraine, and all of the societies influence the policies of countries. And I'm thankful to the people for sharing the same values with us. Whatever is the territory of our country compared to other large countries, our dignity, we have our dignity, and it's one of our values. And I believe that I, as the president, have to defend the dignity of our warriors and our people, which is what I'm doing. And our warriors and our people have demonstrated that it is their right to be free, and this war is a war for independence, so that it is an issue of values, not an issue of money. As regards the conversation with His Majesty, we had a very good meeting, and I'm very grateful for this meeting and for how His Majesty helps Ukraine and supports us politically, and not only. He's met our warriors that are here being trained in the UK, and we are very thankful to the royal family for the support. Thank you.
Dan Saber with The Guardian. Have you had an indication that the US might stop military aid for Ukraine now? There's some report in the New York Times suggests that. And can Ukraine fight on without US military aid? That's just with European help alone. And will you do so?
Дякую.
Thank you. Ukraine perceives the United States as its partner, a strategic partner. This is important for us. And Europe perceives the United States as a strategic partner. And we talked about this a lot today. And we have a lot of agreements about this with the European colleagues, which we're not publicizing, because I'm sure ahead we will have a lot of meetings in the coming weeks. I think we will have a more working plan of our actions, and a clearer vision of what security guarantees could be given to Ukraine, and to what extent we could strengthen this. We had a very good start, a very strong start today, and theoretically there is support from the contingent, and there's a number of countries. I'm not prepared to talk about all of the countries. They will speak for themselves, but it's important that we are talking about it today. That we've received support not only from France and Britain. It's a very good signal. As regards assistance from the United States, this assistance is different. We are working with the United States. I don't think that it would be beneficial to everyone for this assistance to stop. This assistance that we're receiving today, now, This is assistance that was approved by the Congress at some time ago. This other assistance has not been discussed in the Congress yet, so it would be difficult for me to talk about it. But so you know what is going on. Assistance is coming. The assistance in the shape of weapons and arms, this is what I'm talking about, it's coming. That was previously approved by the Congress of the United States. We are prepared to continue the dialogue. We want to, we would like to hope for new assistance. Ukraine has gone up in its significantly in its own internal production, and we can see an increase of in production in Europe as well. This is not just the countries of the European Union, by the way. By the way, it's an important signal as regards support for Ukraine or deploying of any contingents. We're talking about security of Europe, not only Ukraine, which means deploying contingent or guarantees from all of the whole of Europe, and representatives of these countries were here today or online previously. So I've already mentioned that we've had a number of meetings, and this is why we count on assistance from the United States, without a doubt. And I think that the stopping of this assistance would be helpful to Putin exclusively. And the United States are a part of the civilized world, the leaders of the civilized world, and I think they're not going to help Putin. However, as the president of Ukraine, I am working with my team on whatever challenges, so that there would not be any surprises for my armed forces.
Patrick Valls from this magazine. President, I have a question about the new plan with Europe and Ukraine that you hope to present. The Americans are asking for concessions from you. Perhaps you could talk about two areas. One is whether you would be prepared to accept the current line of contact as Ukraine's de facto new border. And then the second is, would you be prepared to accept the lifting of sanctions on Russia as part of this new plan?
Thank you. Today, we are talking about the first steps. And until these steps are written down on paper, I wouldn't want to talk about them in much detail. Before an agreement on the end of the war, there's a really long way to go until this agreement. These steps have not started. I don't want to look into the future, but whatever it is, it needs to be fair, it needs to be honest, and it needs to be stable, it needs to be sustainable. Sustainable peace, and it has to be very specific, with very specific security guarantees and with very specific providers of these security, with specific responsibility for the volume of this assistance, in what sense they will be, if we were talking about assistance on the sea or on land or in the air. What I mean is presence, not assistance. So that would be a part of the security guarantees. We are not talking today about concessions of any kind, because that would be wrong. It would be a wrong kind of discussion. We are hearing signals from various partners. We are hearing signals from the United States. But everyone needs to understand that Ukraine will never recognize whatever territories that are occupied by Russia as Russian territories. For us, this would be temporary occupation, depending on the assistance. For Ukraine, there will be different levels of confidence of Ukraine. So we hope that these security guarantees will make it 100% impossible any kind of opportunity for Russia to come with another aggression, or or if Russia does that, that it will receive a strong response, not only from Ukraine, but also from others. And today, it is too early to talk about it, and I don't want to talk about the details until there is some signatures under this from our partners. And it is very it's too early to talk about any lines, because there are too many things that we need to think of before anything else. Exchange of prisoners. We're talking about thousands. A format of the return of our children, which is absent at the moment. It's a spontaneous ad hoc thing. With the help of different partners, we can bring some children back. Thousands. We have brought thousands back. So we're talking about around 20,000. So these are serious challenges ahead of us, and the sanctions are there. And I know that this issue is being raised. I don't want to... who raises that? You're a journalist, you can see these things, you know. But we are going to do everything, and today our partners agreed to keep the pressure on, not otherwise. And I think that will be probably difficult, because there is a unity of a great number of countries in this, but also there are some lobbyists who are lobbying the lifting of the sanctions against Russia. However, the overwhelming majority of countries are in favor of strengthening the sanctions until a sustainable and fair peace is guaranteed for Ukraine.
As part of the negotiations between the United States and Russia, it appears that business deals have been discussed, including oil investments by American companies in Russia and a lifting on sanctions. What do you make of that?
The negotiations between the US and Russia is a bilateral track. I don't know what these two countries are talking about, and I can only say that we perceive fair content of negotiations regarding to Ukraine. We will perceive it as a fair one when all of the partners are around the table. So Europe, the US, and Ukraine. We understand that these negotiations cannot happen without Russia, so Russia will also be there. So this kind of negotiation then would be, it's understandable that they will happen in the future. With regards to the end of the war, with regards to business, this is what I've already said. I don't know what other people have said. We are not, our territories and our values are not for sale. Our freedom is not for sale. We are paying a high price for the fact that Russia has brought this war to us.
Але можна українською.
Okay.
Хотілося б
I would like to speak about nicer things about the peace, but we need to be realistic. And what I would like to understand, if the United States decide tomorrow to stop the assistance, can they stop what's been already signed and what's already making its way to us? And secondly, what do the warriors in the front line feel when something doesn't come, such as Patriot missiles? What will the cessation of help affect most of all? Just to say this straight off, we are realistic. We're not depressive here, but we are realistic. If we start losing sobriety, a somber look at things, we're going to lose in the battlefield, in the economy, etc. So this is why we need, inside the country and with our partners, we need to fund things, fund our institutions. People need to live. Obviously, it's not the same as in peacetime. It's a time of war, but this is the fault of Russia. The second thing, I would like for us to take a look at the United States assistance from a different angle. Cessation of assistance would mean a change in the whole security infrastructure of the planet. Today, the United States are providing assistance to Europe. What they're doing for Ukraine is assistance to the whole of Europe, because we're defending the whole of Europe. So it's a much wider thing. And if we were to talk about pragmatic things, I don't want to prepare Russia for this information, but we are rather well prepared to different challenges. We don't know where these challenges will come or whether they will. But we've been doing this war for 3 years, and we're grown up. We're adult enough to understand that life is unpredictable. The world is unpredictable. We need to understand this, or we need to be acting faster. So you said that you are not feeling depressive. How do you manage to keep your spirits up? After a meeting such as in the Oval Office, a lot of Ukrainians felt like there's been a knife put in their back, but you're keeping it up. How? I don't have a right to be anything else. And secondly, look at the assistance that we are getting. If we do not keep it up, keep the spirits up, then we will let everyone down. Europe and everybody else, and in Ukraine, and everybody else has been supporting Ukraine, not only with words, but everything else, with emotions, with money, with weapons, etc. We are receiving assistance, support from the world. Otherwise, we'll be letting the world down. We can't afford to.
Follow-up question should be really a follow-up, not a completely separate question. Okay, I hope we are on the same page on it. Thank you, please.
Francis Durnley, The Telegraph. Mr. President, Russia has annexed regions in Ukraine it does not fully control. Is there any chance that as part of a peace deal, any territory could be given to Moscow, which is currently in Ukrainian hands? And what is your message to your people in the occupied territories?
Thank you for this question. Any chances that we, by our own volition, would give something away? No chances. Chances that we will legally recognize, I believe there aren't any. And it's not just because we are what we are, and that's of course number one reason, but there's the law. And even if one country such as Russia breaks international law, it does not mean that others will take this well and support it. So everyone understands that Ukraine will not recognize these occupied territories as Russian. We've been through this before, and I remember this path that we've gone before. We need to proceed from the UN Charter. We need to proceed from the understanding of the international law of all the partners, and we need to proceed from the understanding that time will come and Ukraine will get its Ukrainian land back. We don't want anything that doesn't belong to us, but when you take something that doesn't belong to you, or when you buy something, or when you occupy something, or when you break the law, everything will come back to you. If you steal somebody's house, their land, their life, it will be taken from you. It's just a matter of time. So there's nothing to discuss here.
No chance under your own volition of giving any territory away, but I wonder, is there any peace deal you could sign which would see territory go to Moscow that is not under control? You said not under your own volition, but is there any chance? Could you sign that deal?
Я думаю, що
Then it would not be a peace agreement. That would be a forceful separation of our lands. This will be a coercion that will, which mean a huge risk of hostilities after a certain time. And I think that those countries that are around this war, that are supporting us, or perhaps that want to be intermediaries in this war, they understand that if the war is ended in an unfair way, then it will be a matter of time before people will try to get this justice.
Andrew Marr from LBC.
Microphone, your mic. Yes.
Andrew Marr from LBC. And Mr. President, if I could take you back to that meeting in the Oval Office, we all witnessed it, the whole world witnessed it, and it was absolutely horrible. Was there a moment sitting there that you thought, this is going really badly wrong? Did you feel that in some way you had mishandled the President? There was something you had done that was wrong, and do you regret that? Or if you don't, do you think that you walked into an ambush, a political ambush?
відкриті розмови
Open conversations between the partners, it is important, and it is constructively to understand the positions, and such open conversations should take place. I do not believe it is right when such conversations are absolutely open, because the emotions or information or etc., the foes can take advantage of them. Therefore, the format of what happened, I do not think that it brought something positive or additional to us as partners. I do not want to discuss what happened. I understand that. I wouldn't want to talk about why this happened. I just want to underscore why I also understand. I do not think that we shall carry on in such format to build strong relations. I'm sure that this situation, it will pass by, and in the future there are more important things, and if we will be constructive, the positive result will come. Yeah. And if I'm right to understand, positive result means making the peace for Ukraine closer.
Are you prepared to go back and sit in that room and try again?
Ну, я
Look, it works differently. I didn't come to try. I traveled in the train for 12 hours, then for 11 hours I flew because the President of the United States invited me. And that is one of our main partners, and for me it is a gesture of respect to be in the White House when the President of the United States invites me, just as I have met with the senators. We never insult anybody, and we meet always bipartisan support, either with the Senate or with the Congress, and we always try to be politically correct as possible. I'm President of Ukraine, and I do not perceive my country as better than others, but definitely not worse than others. And with all actions since the beginning of the war, I'm doing that. I'm just saying that we are worse an equal dialogue. Therefore, if President of the United States of America invites me for a constructive dialogue, I represent the interests of the country that strongly depends from the support, from the partnership, and of course, if I am invited for the constructive dialogue to solve real issues, for serious questions and truly decisive answers and actions because of the respect to America, to American people, and to President, and to both parties, to the United States overall.
Mr. President, Laura Kunsberg, BBC News. I can tell you're choosing your words very carefully, talking about that moment 48 hours ago in the Oval Office. But surely to get the security guarantee that you crave, you do need to rebuild your relationship with President Trump. Will you, as the White House is still asking you to do, apologise or express any regret for how you handled the meeting at all? And if possible, for our BBC viewers, it would be very good if you were able to just to say a few words about it in English, but I quite understand if you'd rather stick to Ukrainian.
Так, якщо можна, я...
If possible, with all the respect, I'd rather continue the way we do it. Yes, I very much want that we all started ending the war not from today's moment, but started with the moment of the beginning of this war. And when we in these or those conclusions, especially public ones, forget, it seems to me, how many people Russia and the Russian army, by the order of Putin, has killed in Ukraine. They are the aggressors. They came. If we start with that moment, it seems to me that between us, just as partners, it seems to me Ukrainian stance would be more understandable. Our feeling towards justice and how painful it is for us. And that no matter what happens, we cannot forget this. Not because you cannot forget some adventure. These are simply not jokes. That is the thing about the situation. We cannot forget because it wasn't about bad weather or that you failed something in your life. The people have lost their lives and it is impossible to bring it back. And here we need no persecution. We know because of whom it happened, because Russia speaks about it itself, and they're joyful of that. So we need no evidence, no persecution. We want sentences, and we have the right to that. Our families have right. And it is very painful for us, and all that we want from partners is the constructive dialogue, so that they remember who the aggressor is. I would not want this war that this war to look like in some new light that there are two parties in the war and it is vague who the aggressor is. We need to be in the middle. We don't, Did I understand it correctly, or you wanted to hear something else?
Move on to get the guarantees that you crave from America for your security. The White House is making clear to the world they need you to budge somehow. They've said today that you have to accept conceding some territory. They still want you to sign this minerals deal. And if you don't budge, then perhaps you're stuck and the suffering of your people that you've just spoken about goes on. So are you willing in principle to talk about conceding territory, in principle to express some regret of President Trump, or to sign the minerals deal?
The agreement on the minerals, the deal is ready. We are... It wasn't ready. There were many variants, but there is the last one. It is ready, and the ministers can sign it. Everywhere where I have said it as a president that we can do it, we do not retreat. It is our policy to continue despite what happened in the past. We are constructive. If we agreed upon signing it, we were ready to sign it, and honestly, I believe that the United States would be ready as well. Perhaps there is a need in time to analyze certain things, but I would just want Ukrainian position to be heard. It was very important for me that Ukrainian position is heard. The fact that it happened in media, I did not prepare this meeting, and I was in those conditions that were there, and our stance was heard, because I didn't want our position to be ambiguous. It's I think that it was heard now and not at the negotiation table at which Putin will be present. We must all understand and know each other. Understand these or those red lines. They are not emotional, they just happen to be there, and there is justice and truth, and that is it. I'm ready for any format. Constructive format in relationship with the United States, and I believe that we have it all, and it is in our capacity to preserve all that. On our side, once again, we very much count on that. We're willing, and we will be. The agreement that is on the table, it will be signed if the parties are ready. And I said what I think. Because the agreement has two parties.
Добрий вечір, пане президенте. Наталя Гончарова, ТСН 1+1 from Ukrainian channel. I just introduced myself, Natalia. So, українською вже забула. Це нормально. Українською краще.
Speak Ukrainian. This situation is now surrounded by a lot of rumors, but we just wanted to hear this from you. What happened after the press left the Oval Office and until your departure, the consequence, the sequence of events? I think we'll leave this for history. Okay, it was short. Can I ask another one? Yes, you can ask me a follow-up question, but a different subject. Today, we heard a lot from America. Did we? Oh, yes, about what they expect from you and the territories and the European peacekeepers, and that you would need to apologize and to make concessions, territorial concessions. I understand you've already talked about the territories and also about the apologies. What are you going to do in this situation if it's going to be a dead end? I think that intelligent people always find a way out from a situation. That's the first thing. And secondly, I think that on paper we will have a clear understanding of the infrastructure of security guarantees that will protect us. And I don't want to argue about this. What security guarantees are envisaged by different partners. I think it is more constructive when we talk about what specifically will protect us. And if we are offered something else, and Ukraine then is saying it will not protect us, then this is not a security guarantee. And this is why I believe that to discuss any format of security guarantees or contingents or numbers, yes, we will do that. And I'm sure this will be a fairly public process, but after we understand each other between us. So I think the leaders need to work on this between us about how this is going to look. And this is not a question of years. We want, more than anybody, we want peace in Ukraine. And I respect everybody's position, but none of the leaders are arguing. And if somebody's arguing that they want more peace than we do, then perhaps they don't understand what their people are feeling. They have a right to think that, of course, but they simply do not know what is happening to Ukrainians. We want to bring an end to this war, and our soldiers want to come back to their families. We want to bring our people back home. We want to bring our children back to school. We want people to stop dying. And I think this is a huge respect for everyone who's given their lives for our independence. We do not want Putin to win. This is a war for independence. We will not let him win, whatever anybody will say. But behind closed doors, were you able to ask Trump what will protect us? Did he give you any indication? We'll leave this for future historians. Thank you. Financial Times.
The difference between you and President Trump about the importance of security and securing this deal in this peace process. He said it was only 2% of the problem. What do you think of that remark? And connected to this, have you, as of today, essentially outsourced your efforts to persuade him otherwise to France and Britain?
No. I'm not prepared to evaluate in percentage points these security guarantees. I'm not sure exactly what President Trump was saying. I remember what you mentioned. I remember this moment. Yes, but for us, security guarantees, the best one is NATO. And as you know, the United States does not support this. But if I were to talk about NATO and if I were to talk about what this means for the people of Ukraine, I would then say it's not 2%, it's much more. Because it's confidence in our future. We don't know what the configuration of the security guarantees will look like. This is why I'm mentioning NATO. And if you were to ask Ukrainians, if we are talking about Ukrainians, not about partners or leaders that do not lead countries at war. I wish peace on everyone, but I always say we can't compare these things. We can't compare. It's different. We do not live the life that we want to live. We're not living a life we want to live. We're at war. That's it. And it's not us who are choosing the way we're living today. We are fighting for the right to choose how we live. And our destiny is being written by the army of Russia today. We have stopped this path, stopped them in their path, because we want to choose our own path. So for us, security guarantees is confidence that there won't be another thing, the same thing happening after this war ends, at whatever stage it ends, whether it be a hot phase or whatever. We're trying to explain. You decide what percentage this is for the people. If they need to do everything they can to make sure that Putin has 0% of probability to come back again. And I think for us that's very important. The security guarantees are very important contribution. With regards to Britain and France, France initiated the contingent, initiated this, and the UK said we're prepared to support this. So these countries that are prepared to talk to me, and I wanted to emphasize, we do have an understanding in Ukraine how much and where we would need a contingent of various countries. That's all in place. We're talking about it, and it's important that we are making serious steps towards it. And as I've already said, I believe that in the coming weeks it will be laid down on paper, and the question will be which countries are prepared for this or not prepared for this, and in what numbers. And as France and Britain are not doing this without us, they have proposals, suggestions. They're talking to us about them, and we spoke to the Nordic Baltic 8, and so with this, they will also work with this structure with us, and I can see some positive things here. We separately spoke to Turkey, and in the future infrastructure of security, Turkey can take its place also. So these are the things we have as of today, and we want to take all of these formats and bring them together into one format. And then when this is ready, we will be prepared to share with the public. And how do we do that? We always do it through you, through your colleagues, through the media, because security guarantees. We say that Ukraine needs security guarantees. Security guarantees are needed by the people, by people. It's for the people. They need to say, we believe in this, and life comes back to the country, people are coming back. If the people are not coming back to the country, it means that people do not have any confidence in the security guarantees.
Mr. President, Peter Mandelson, the new British ambassador to Washington, said today that he felt Ukraine should be the first to commit to a ceasefire and then defy Russia to follow. Is that what's your view of that proposal, and was it anything that was raised with you by the British Prime Minister today? And just finally, if I may, Keir Starmer made it clear he saw the United States under President Trump as a reliable ally. Is that a characterization you share?
Ще раз? Окей.
Again, please.
Значить, передусім.
First of all, about the ceasefire. I'll give you an example, and I will explain to you how and why security guarantees are important. I'll give you an example that is related to the ceasefire specifically. I do not remember exactly whether I've spoken about it in public or to particular leaders, but it's no secret. When I became president, we had a contact line, and since the first occupations 11 years ago, there was a contact line in the east of our country. And there was a quote-unquote ceasefire. Why do I say quote-unquote? Because we have statistics. 25 times since the first occupation in 2014 of Crimea and the east, 25 times Russia officially violated the ceasefire, 25 times. And this is when we officially agreed the ceasefire. The Minsk Accords, you know all of it. So 25 times Russia violated them. And I wanted to understand with the military. In the first theme of my mandate, I wanted to understand why the ceasefire is being broken. So we went there and to have a look. And Russia was using this tactic. They were bringing fighters, snipers, and they were conducting live training for snipers. They would come in from the occupied territories in the east of Ukraine, and they were training. They were killing both civilians and military. They were killing children. There were horrible situations. It's completely savage. So this is before the full-scale invasion, and it looked horrifying. They were just coming in, and they were coming in along the contact line, which was by dozens of times shorter than today's contact line. It was just much shorter. So when they were killing us, we can understand that our guys would respond, and that's understandable. So this is what ceasefire looked like. Everyone was talking about the ceasefire, but every day people would die. Not, of course, not in the same numbers as during the full-scale invasion, but people were dying nonetheless. If you don't have an end to a war, and if you don't have any security guarantees, nobody is able of controlling a ceasefire along this very long contact line. And they're not talking about snipers anymore. We're talking about artillery. We're talking about drones. We're talking about heavy artillery. And I said this to the colleagues. I know that President Trump wants to end the war, and together with Europe and with us, they can force Putin to end the war. And I said that for everyone, it would be a failure if, for example, Ukraine is forced to the ceasefire without any serious security guarantees. And you can imagine that a week later, the Russians will again shoot at us, and we will shoot back. And this is completely understandable. And what will this be? The Russians will say exactly the same as they did 10 years ago. No, they said that the Ukrainians broke it. And we will show all of the evidence that it was them. And who will win in this case, in this situation? Russians. Not us, for sure. Not the United States, for sure. Not the American president, for sure. Not the European colleagues, for sure. Because the whole idea that a war would end with a ceasefire, the ceasefire is not enough. And I'm saying this as someone who has experience of this war, and someone who has experience of talking and agreeing things with Putin in the Normandy format in France. There was a signed agreement on the ceasefire. This was my agreement with him, with Germany and France, with Merkel and Macron. And Emmanuel knows, this is what he says, we don't need any more Minsk Accords. He knows this. He knows this. They're impossible to stick to. It's a trap. And I believe we will fail. If we fail if we just call it a ceasefire. We need to understand how we're going to enforce it. So this is why I'm saying it constantly. If we are talking about the contingent, we cannot just say, oh, there will be a contingent. Where will it be? And if we are talking about a ceasefire, we are saying, look, please, this will be a failure for everyone. We don't want this. And as soon as somebody breaks the ceasefire, and it will be the Russians, of which I'm sure, but I don't want to argue right now, nobody will win from this. Because as soon as we see the first victims, first casualties, artillery round will hit a school, everything's over. Everything's over. And then it's a continuation of war, and we don't know what shape it will take then. This is what we're talking about. When we ask who is going to enforce it, what people, what forces.
Hello, Alessandra Galloni from Reuters.
Hi.
Hi. So you said several times just over the past hour that everyone is interested in not allowing Putin to win. But it seems from the past few weeks that the U.S. may no longer feel that way. For example, it's not prepared to call out Russian aggression, for example, in United Nations resolutions. So how does your position need to change? And relatedly, today, did you discuss with European countries if they will now reconsider giving Ukraine directly the $300 billion of frozen Russian assets?
First of all, it's important that the European side is not reconsidering its position as regards who started the war, Putin, who's the aggressor, Russia, and who needs to pay for this, the Russians. As regards the assets, that issue is being raised. These assets that are frozen, they need to be used by Ukraine for weapons or for the reconstruction of Ukraine in the priority areas. We'll see what will be needed first. But again, this will depend on the end of the war. And as regards diplomatic steps from the U.S. Regarding the resolution or whatever, I do not know the tactic of the United States. So I believed that our meeting with the United States was needed to make sure we understand each other and that we would not have surprises, because for us it would be painful. And I don't believe this, and this is my opinion, that if we lessen the pressure on Russia, if we change the rhetoric about its aggression, if we soften the documents about the Russian invasion, if we soften the rhetoric, and as one of your colleagues said today, one of your colleagues mentioned that I choose my words very carefully. It's true. I am choosing my words carefully. And I don't believe that all of this would lead let me say flexibility of Russia's leader. I do not believe it would, but as I already said, I do not know their tactic. I think the only thing I do think is that it is not right that the issue of the end of the war in Ukraine, let's say, would be based on a tactic that is not known to us. I believe it would not bring quick, good or secure steps for Ukraine.
Follow-up. So you said that you had the meeting in order to understand each other. So do you and President Trump now understand each other on Russia?
It seems to me it's not our first meeting. We've spoken before over the telephone, we've had meetings before. I think, and I would say that I would really like for President Trump to hear some things from me personally. This is what I wanted. And in the same vein, I would like to hear some things from President Trump personally as well. And I believe that our people who are working at their level, our teams are working on both sides, and there are also European leaders who have their relationships with President Trump's administration, or the media, who relay this. So all of these structures are sending signals to each other. And I think it would be much simpler if we had more time for direct dialogue with the president. This is how I look at it. This is my understanding. The faster how to do it faster and how to do it in a more positive way. What I mean is a positive result, how we can build this dialogue. So to my mind, this would be more right. Again, this is my opinion, but as I said, I don't know the tactics of all of the partners.
Mark Bennett, Sunday Times. Do you agree that Putin's ultimate aim is not just to take some territory in Donetsk, in Luhansk, and Kherson, and it's to destroy Ukraine as an independent state? If so, then why would he agree to allow European peacekeepers into Ukraine to enforce a peace, given that essentially it would mean a defeat for him and that he would not be able to achieve his ultimate aim? Lavrov said today, and Russian officials have said on many occasions that it's categorically unacceptable. Yeah? So how could the West force Russia to change its position and allow European peacekeepers in after a ceasefire?
Росії багато земель є.
Russia has a lot of lands. I don't quite understand why they need so much land. I don't think anyone does. They have a lot of stuff and they don't even have technologies on most of their territory or people. What I mean is technologies, business from around the world. They don't have the power and the economy to build the economy. Russia will need a long time. They are living in a Soviet, definitely not in a free market. And it's understandable why, because there are families that control mining and everything else. And for them to develop this, how to develop mining across the country like people do in other countries, they would need to let businesses in, but they're not letting businesses in. So it's Kremlin families have a share in all of this. This is where they are present. And existentially, the question is not about the land. The issue is of the Russian world. It's the Russian philosophy, and it's the spread of their narratives and their presence across the territories where Soviet Union was present before. So for them, they've built this internal right, their internal entitlement to this. It's their view. So they don't need a strong Ukraine. They need a republic like Belarus today. So legally, it is an independent state, but only legally, notionally. In fact, it's a part of Russia, where Russia has total control over everything. It's not an issue, of course, of minerals in Belarus or mining in Belarus. That's not the issue. Russia has much more of it. The issue is in the Russian world, in the empire that Putin envisages and wants to leave behind for the future generations and to go down in history like this. And Ukraine is like a bone in their throat. Ukraine is complicated, Ukraine is large, territorially and in the sense of population. Without Ukraine, he cannot bring it back, his empire back. The rest of the countries, with all due respect, they are smaller countries. They are members of the EU and the UN. They used to be Soviet Union there, but all of these countries will fall. If Ukraine stands, then he will not break this part of the Western world, and he will not bring back his Russian world. this is why that Ukraine is in this war for the Russian world is the only and the most important, the most complicated goal for Putin. As regards, well, this is why they will talk about territories. It doesn't matter to them what they will talk about. There's a narratives. They have a notebook of those. It doesn't matter what they talk about. What is most important to them is to not let Ukraine change its path that people have changed some time ago in the sense of values, but he wants to bring them back. He wants to pull them back and not let Ukraine become a part of a European family or Western family, which Ukraine is. But this is what he shows when he occupies land. He shows that this can work. Look what happened to Georgia. We know these people, they're pro-European people, but he will keep changing them. Little by little, he did not allow them to integrate in the EU, in NATO. He froze the war, he occupied Abkhazia, and you can see that little by little he's changing the internal policy. And with all due respect to our friends, the Georgians, and they're great people. I adore them, they're great people. We have a lot of friends in Georgia, but you need to understand that they can see that the policy, that the politics and the parliament and the leadership are looking towards Russia now. So Russians are managing to change the path of the countries where they are. Even the people are against it. Even if the people are against it, little by little, step by step, through the army, the police, parties, money, they're doing this.
Well, kind of maybe not even follow up, but just to make it clear. So, given all that, how can the West make Russia stop fighting to allow the peacekeepers in, if the ultimate game is everything you said, to bring the Russian world to Ukraine?
Саме так.
That's exactly so. To not lift sanctions, but strengthen them as much as possible. So his economy is in a very severe situation, and it will worsen. To, as much as possible, decreasing the prices for the oil and for the energy, that is one story. To close the shadow fleet, that is other story. To close the banking system, that is also not all. To cut all the ties in which he circumvents the sanctions, to the countries that help Putin to bypass the sanctions, not because they are friends with Putin, but because they are making money, to offer those countries another source of revenue, to offer them a revenue. The Russians provide them cheap gas, give them just the same gas. Cut everything off, provide total sanctions, introduce total sanctions. Their economy is already falling, but their decline will be faster. And say then, here is our plan. Here are the sanctions. Look, these sanctions are working now, yes. And this is a list of sanctions that we will enforce tomorrow. If you don't stop the war, if you do not allow the deployment of the contingent, or you will be against, etc. Apart from these sanctions, here is the package of the weapons that we will provide to Ukraine. You see that their army is capable of stopping you. Yes, and here we'll provide them with weapons with which they will destroy all your energy sector, all your military factories, and except for the economy, your capability to produce weapons and missiles will decline. To end all the story with the components to missiles, the microchips, various technologies and electronics that is transferred to Russia by other countries. All the businesses and companies are known inside the countries where these businesses are incorporated. These are countries of Europe, America, Asia. All these business structures are there to make an agreement with them, to prohibit them selling to Russians these components, to control all these flows. And I'll be frank with you, this is a difficult job to do, but it is understandable. There are no secrets. Everybody understands who's doing this. The people, the companies, the surnames, all that we have. So just to approach it slightly stronger, slightly more in a structured way. And he will not do anything, Putin. His population will be unhappy when his missiles will be not capable of flying, when he will have problems with financing his internal institutions, the social expenditures. He will face serious troubles. And he is afraid of only one thing, exactly this, internal challenges. And honestly, how could he prohibit the partners to deploy the contingent? How? In which way?
Yalda Hakim from Sky News. Has there been any communication with the administration since the Oval Office meeting? Have they reached out to you? And separately, you talked about resignation a few days ago. How are you thinking about elections?
Я. Комунікації є.
There is communication, not on my level. Yes. As regards resignation, my resignation, if I am to be changed, and I'll hear, how can I put it, with what's happening with the support to change me, it will not be easy, because it is not enough to simply hold elections. You would need to prevent me from participating in the elections, and it will be a bit more difficult. So they'll have to negotiate with me. And I said that I'm exchanging it for NATO membership. And then it means that I've fulfilled my mission. There is NATO. It means I've fulfilled my mission. Although, honestly, it looks like the people, and I'll not be calling their posts, naming their posts, but the citizens of other countries are telling Ukrainians which president they should have, especially if these people occupy official posts. It seems to me a bit undemocratic and unconstructive. We are speaking about the values, and it definitely looks not very democratic. Although I'm openly saying maybe it is a solution for Putin, for everybody. If I'm not that flexible as they say, I'm exchanging it for NATO.
Can I just ask, you alluded to citizens of other nations. I mean, since the incident, Senator Lindsey Graham said that perhaps you should consider resigning. Speaker Mike Johnson today said that maybe you should consider resigning. Is your attitude it's not their business?
Lindsey Graham is a very good guy, a very nice. And speaking who must be the president and whether I shall resign, I can give him the citizenship of Ukraine. He will become the citizen of our country, and then his voice will start to gain weight, and I will hear him as a citizen of Ukraine on the topic of who must be the president. But Lindsey represents the party that fights for democratic values, and Anyway, the president of Ukraine will have to be chosen not at home, at Lindsey Graham's home, but in Ukraine.
We've discussed to have a couple of rounds of questions, but we've only had time for one because it's been 1 hour and a half. No.
Okay.
No. It's been 1 hour and a half, almost 1 hour and a half. So it's time.
Thank you so much.
Is it possible? Sorry, President Macron has told Le Figaro that President Macron has told Le Figaro tonight that he and Keir Starmer are proposing a truce of 1 month, saying that he and Starmer don't believe in a ceasefire signed by the Americans and the Russians. He told Le Figaro he's convinced that Putin will seek above all to humiliate Ukraine, and as an alternative, he and Keir Starmer have put on the table a truce that would last 1 month. Were you aware of that proposal, and would you agree it?
Я все знаю.
I'm aware of everything.
Well, that's a nice full stop. Let's finish.